You need help on your waiver wire, and that's why we are here for you, the Week 8 waiver wire, the Audible, and Jameis Winston talk. Finally, we've projected it enough.
Right.
We thought about what would happen if Jameis was out there. Now, Bloom, we're going to see it.
Yeah, kind of dark. This has been a dark age for the Browns. And it's funny, Cecil, we might have said, what would it take for the Browns to turn to Jameis Winston? Maybe if Deshaun Watson tears his Achilles. Maybe that would. Now, last week, for whatever reason, Dorian Thompson-Robinson was the backup. I don't know what logic, what thought process led them to that. I don't
So the
know.
fans wouldn't chant Jameis. I mean,
Yeah,
that's what everyone's saying. I don't know if how true is that, Bloom. It was
right.
on the internet, so it has to be true. But like the fans were saying, like they made DTR number 2 so that there was no chance of like Jameis.
And that would be consistent with, well, now that they have to try to win games. Do they have to try to win games? I don't know. There's a race for the number 1 pick, and then they're in it. So we're going to watch this to see who's prepared to be the starter. But if it's Jameis, the offensive line has been an issue. Obviously, they traded away Amari Cooper, but it's amazing how the vibe around a team can change depending on who the quarterback is. So we'll watch that. And Dorian Thompson-Robinson has some running ability if he's the starter. So certainly in Superflex 2 quarterback leagues, this is interesting. And we'll talk about this later on the Waiver Wire show, how maybe this is more interesting for other positions than the quarterback position. But certainly there's change for Cleveland, and we got to grapple with it.
We got to grapple with Russell Wilson being the quarterback of the Steelers. Now, is it just the Jets are terrible or whatever? Like, yeah, maybe. Is it the fact that he can throw with more touch than Justin Fields? I still want to see Fields. Whatever, Bloom. I better hand this off to you or I'll sit here and bitch, sorry, Joe, for the next 30 minutes.
This is the neurotic Steelers fan section, right? Russell Wilson revives the passing game, and we're still wringing our hands and saying, I don't know what's going to happen. Why is this happening? What's going to happen next? And Russell Wilson, we thought we'd see more Justin Fields and package plays, but maybe we don't need to. Like you said, was it just the Jets? What happened to the Jets defense in this one? Russell Wilson still in 1 quarterback leagues as a desperation play, but in 2 quarterback superflex leagues, going up against the Giants next week too, the New York double dip. So there's something there, and harnessing what Pickens can do. We even saw Darnell Washington getting involved. Other quarterbacks, Drake Maye is out there. He faces this Jets defense next week. Bo Nix, there's your streamer this week. If you want to get someone going against Carolina, that looks pretty good. Some other new quarterbacks. Maybe we'll see Jake Haener. Maybe we'll see Spencer Rattler. Maybe we'll see Derek Carr. New Orleans. Also, hey, they can get into that race for the number 1 pick. Playing the Chargers next week. Mason Rudolph still looks the same. Who knows what they're going to do against Detroit next week? Maybe that's a Detroit defense take. And Gardner Minshew's back. So maybe he's the most attractive of these quarterbacks who are pressed into action. None of these teams are in a good place to be.
The running back position, Jaylen Warren, and by the way, the block numbers for the Steelers, that should be your look. That's forever and ever and ever. But Jaylen Warren out there, when I wasn't mad about watching Russell Wilson, I was loving what I saw from Jaylen Warren.
And he's important because this is going to be a backup running back section of the show. And in fact, the longtime listeners to the Waiver Wire show know that once we hit bye week gauntlet, it's strange to be in the bye week gauntlet, and now there's no bye weeks this week. Okay, but because of that, maybe you do have a little more wiggle room of roster spot to just stock with pure upside. And now that Jaylen Warren's healthy, now that Steelers offense looking better, if Najee Harris goes down, I would say Jaylen Warren is worth more as the starter than Harris is, but Harris is the starter. Harris had a good game last night also, but he leads the cavalcade of backup running backs.
Yeah, cavalcade it is. In fact, when you look at, let's just start with Roschon Johnson, one of my favorites who could be a starter elsewhere. We're going to say that about a lot of these backs.
Yeah, and he's coming back off a bye, so he could have been dropped. And we know he gets at least a chance as a desperation player or what the heck flex because this is a good defense. This is a team that wants to run the ball, probably a better short yardage runner than DeAndre Swift. And then DeAndre Swift, if he goes down, jackpot. It's just some other guys. Obviously, Ray Davis, he's out there. Ray Davis, you might not even be carrying strictly as a backup. I wonder if he's going to force a committee or maybe even overtake James Cook. Tyler Goodson has overtaken Trey Sermon. We'll see if Jonathan Taylor's ready to be back. But even when Taylor's back, he's somebody we want to keep tabs on. Emmanuel Wilson in this Green Bay offense, Blake Corum and the Rams about to get Cooper Kupp and eventually Puka Nacua back. Jalen Wright, the running game, they're getting Tua Tagovailoa back. Braylon Allen, he was coming for Breece Hall. Now Breece Hall's not the problem. But again, if Breece Hall gets hurt, you're like there. Kenneth Gainwell looked good yesterday. So this running game looking good. Now you're seeing the Eagles offensive line creating that push. And once Saquon Barkley is getting to the second level, he knows what to do. And Kenneth Gainwell looked like he knew what to do. Certainly Will Shipley is no threat to his workload if Barkley were to get hurt. And then we're going to watch the David Montgomery knee. Now, I don't know. Craig Reynolds, Netflix Reynolds, he's the guy that has the experience, maybe more trusted, but Sione Vaki is the exciting play here. And maybe Montgomery's okay, but when it's the Detroit offense, even a chance of somebody getting more work is something we're going to watch.
Yeah, it's something we'll watch closely. We don't do recaps for Sunday night games, and I shouldn't do this since we're on a time crunch, Bloom, but I'll say it anyway. I don't think that was Breece Hall. Like, yeah, now he's back, and I love Breece Hall. I love him. I think that's the way you beat the Steelers.
Yeah.
That's because you do it as a receiving back. Like, the smart teams will attack you downfield and use receiving backs, draw plays and screen passes.
Yes.
You're facing that rush. What are you going to do? Draw plays and screen passes, toss some deep ones, and back them up. Anyway, let's move on to the wide receiver position and your upgrades, downgrades waiver wire report, which will be fully available at footballguys.com. We'll have a lot of San Francisco receivers. So let's start there.
Yeah. Brandon Ayuk, the fear is a torn ACL. And maybe Rashee Rice didn't have a torn ACL, but he was out for the year. See, I think in the whole time we've been doing the show, there has not been a player where they said torn ACL feared, and then they played later that season. So we'll see about Brandon Ayuk. Again, the Rice situation made us say, well, we can't say with 100% certainty, but let's talk about San Francisco wide receiver as if Ayuk is out for the year, and at least he got paid. So you see, by the way, the next time you want to malign a player for holding out, this is why. This is why they want to get their generational security as soon as they possibly can. Jauan Jennings is the layup, easy pickup after he had a massive game. He'll have one of the biggest games of any wide receiver this year, no matter what happens from here on out. He's hurt. He's hurt with a hip injury. Then you might say, well, of course, it's the first rounder, Ricky Pearsall. But remember, he missed a lot of the summer. Then he got shot. Jeez, it's twice in 3 years that we talk about a rookie. He's on his way to make an impact. Then he gets shot. Brian Robinson, Ricky Pearsall. So you don't know if he's ramped up. And then there's Jacob Cowing. And look, Jacob Cowing is an explosive player. He's a playmaker. And you saw him make a play for this team yesterday. And he's maybe the most prepared as far as ready to take over a bigger role in this offense. Remember, Deebo Samuel also with an illness. So Deebo Samuel, maybe there's room for two of these guys if Samuel continues to have all these nicks and bumps. We're going to watch this. And I think the bottom line is going to be if Jauan Jennings is healthy, it's Jauan Jennings. But how healthy is he? When is he going to be healthy? And then otherwise play on the field is going to decide this.
And other than San Francisco wide receivers, let's start with Cedrick Tillman and some more receivers.
Yeah, Cedrick Tillman, right? We can remember Jalen Hyatt. And going back to Jalen Hyatt, Giants wide receiver, he was a player who had that late bloomer profile, deep ball game. Maybe some of the teams that he had big games against made people worry they were counterfeit. When Hyatt, and remember, some had Hyatt going in the late first round, and people would go and watch Hyatt. They'd watch Tennessee tape and say, what about, they'd say Hendon Hooker can only read one half of the field. But then they would say, Cedrick Tillman, that's the other guy. And he's more of a classic outside receiver who can win at the catch point, who's more formidable against number one NFL corners. And you saw it with Amari Cooper gone, a lot of targets. And again, we're watching this Cleveland offense changing. And maybe it is Cedrick Tillman, not Jerry Jeudy, not Elijah Moore, who becomes the receiver that we want. Certainly in terms of volume, yesterday he was the receiver that we want. Just watch, there's Green Bay receivers also. Romeo Doubs still out there in short bench leagues. You saw him carry the banner for this pass offense, and Dontavian Wicks for that matter. And it's not clear who the number one outside receiver, or if there is a week in, week out number one wide receiver outside downfield. It was Wick's turn, not Christian Watson. So it's a problem for us in fantasy, but something very good for Jordan Love and Packers fans.
Good for Drake Maye is his tight end, and that is Hunter Henry. So as we're watching Maye in 2 games, we're seeing he really loves Hunter Henry. So guess what you're doing on your fantasy waiver wire this week?
Yeah, and against the Jets, and between Darnell Washington and Pat Freiermuth, I think the Steelers had almost 100 yards receiving from their tight ends. So that's a good place to start when you're looking for a weekly tight end play. It was Hunter Henry. It also was kind of a garbage time game script for New England. The one variable we're going to watch here is Demario Douglas went out with an illness. And, again, we'll just leave this right there. No specific comment. The 2 players went into the game questionable with an illness. We were reassured they were okay, and then they left the game due to that illness. So things are changing a little bit. Used to be around these parts when a player would go on the injury report because of an illness, we'd say, it's fine. They're just reporting it because they have to. Maybe it'll give us a little bit of pause going forward. But if Demario Douglas is back and healthy, then perhaps it wouldn't be such a target domination for Hunter Henry. But Drake Maye, see, it's one of those things. It becomes a canard sometimes, but sometimes it's true. The rookie quarterback is going to rely on his veteran tight end.
It's the security blanket. Jonnu Smith is now back on the waiver wire. That's how it goes. How it goes. Been doing this show for 19 years. They're off, they're on. They're off, they're on. Jonnu Smith is back.
Right. It's the merry-go-round. I've been calling it the merry-go-round this year. See, you ever go on any of those merry-go-rounds where it's a bunch of different animals, not just horses?
We've done this.
Oh, you don't like carousels?
No. Not that I don't like carousels. I was never allowed to ride a carousel.
That's right.
Because we had horses at home.
That's right. This is
but then I'd be like, but we don't have elephants and all the other ones.
Zebras, lions. I can ride a bear. So, that's kind of what we're watching, right? It's like when you see a tight end having a big week, then you think, well, maybe that's the tight end we'll ride the next week. But then they fade, they go out of view. But just wait a week or two, and they'll come back in consideration again. That's been Jonnu Smith this year, although he does have some momentum now. When Tua Tagovailoa is back, hopefully this week, add that to the quarterback section if he's out there. You would think it's the revival of Tyreek Hill, the revival of Jaylen Warren, but that could also keep things open for Jonnu Smith. And the production is there. Noah Fant has strung together a couple of good weeks. Seattle going up against Buffalo this week. Jatavian Sanders, for whatever reason, that's the one guy that Andy Dalton was looking for. Maybe Deontay Johnson isn't 100%. Noah Gray. A little odd to look at the Kansas City box score and see Noah Gray at the top of the receivers. Juju Smith-Schuster getting a little banged up. I don't think there's someone I don't know who else. I'm not going to go to Mecole Hardman. I'm not sure who else they could unearth in the revival tour, the nostalgia tour. Nostalgia tours are big now. I guess the Kansas City offense is a nostalgia tour right now, but Noah Gray, his best ball could be ahead of him. And Kansas City this week has a pretty easy matchup against the Raiders.
All right. It is the time of the program, and full waiver report available, footballguys.com. Upgrades, downgrades, waiver wire report written by Sigmund Bloom. So check it out. But every week when we get to this portion of the show, we get to scream it out or whisper it out. Doesn't matter. Just as long as you participate. That's what we ask on this program. And as we both enjoy the beginning of the New York Knicks season, Bloom, myself and Mr. Chuck D will be certainly watching our New York Knicks with great interest. But until then, all I can do is shout them out. And we will do that just now. It's time to cue the Chuck D. Bloom Week 8 shut 'em downs.
A few easier ones, Dalton Schultz, if you were looking for him as your 1 week tight end play. Jordan Whittington, you're going to see Cooper Kupp back on Thursday night. Christian Kirk, we're waiting for his turn. It's Brian Thomas, it's Evan Ingram. And maybe Christian Kirk could get traded at the deadline.
I was going to say, wait till he gets traded.
So that's tough. Daniel Jones, I think, this Giants offense is just so difficult to predict week to week. And the rushing upside, Malik Neighbors, there's so much theoretical upside for Daniel Jones, but the frustrating exercise of trying to time the right week, probably not against the Steelers, maybe. That's a good Tyrone Tracy take earlier, by the way, Cease. He's a draw play back. He's a space back. So we'll see if the Giants, Brian Dable, can do that. Here's the big one, Cease. Anthony Richardson. I mean, is this just one that you want to wash your hands of it? And you say, well, if he figures it out in the second half of the year and somebody else gets to benefit from that.
It depends on who your other quarterbacks are, because Tim Tebow couldn't throw. He's a top 10 fantasy quarterback. Again, we're talking about fantasy. I think in the really real world, in real football, there's huge concerns about Anthony Richardson. Huge. Fantasy-wise, because of his legs, like, yeah, he can be 10 of 35 and then run for 70 yards at a touchdown, and he'll be a number one fantasy quarterback. So we always have to navigate. Remember when Blake Bortles was a king of garbage time?
Right.
Yeah.
It's true. It doesn't have to be valid ways that the fantasy value is compiled. But I think you're right, Cease, to say, if you're telling me your other quarterback is Kyler Murray, well, if you're telling me the other quarterback CJ Stroud, if you haven't gotten that consistent production. But somebody asked me this morning that their other quarterback is Caleb Williams.
Yeah.
I mean, because the other thing with the complicating factor with Anthony Richardson is any game can end prematurely with an injury. So that adds risk, adds frustration factor. And it's just sad, Cease, because Jaden Daniels went out with a rib injury. He's going to be fine. Washington did the right thing. We're going to see him against Chicago, rookie versus a rookie. That's awesome. Number one, that's going to be awesome stuff. But you have this problem of now the quarterback has a lot of different ways that things can go wrong. And for Anthony Richardson, not many that can go right.
What about hold on in week 8? Who are some of those players you hold on to going forward?
Yeah. Juju Smith-Schuster, kind of, maybe. Well, I mean, it's a hamstring. He came into the week on the injury report with a hamstring, and I want to know a little bit more because I still think that it will be there for him because it was the mind meld that he and Patrick Mahomes displayed. And again, not like anything else is working in this pass offense. So I think they would go right back to him. Like we said, maybe it is Douglas. Hold on to him. Absolutely. It was an illness. Christian Kirk, maybe you hope for a trade. So he's on both sides of this segment. Christian Watson, I wouldn't give up on him yet. Come on. Adding to the shut him downs, by the way, Calvin Ridley, DeAndre Hopkins, any Tennessee Titans other than Tony Pollard. Jameson Williams becomes still a hold on as the big games are going to come. And Sam Laporta is a hold on because I know that people are starting to think out there. I have a feeling you're still got a 3 or 4 week outburst, maybe during the fantasy playoffs. Laporta is going to have something to say about fantasy football before the end of the season.
All you need is a window, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's all you need. Window and talent. And the audible is what you need. We need more of Sigmund Bloom in our lives. That's why we follow him on X at Sigmund Bloom. I'm at Cecil Lammey. The show is at the Audible. Whew. Here we go. Week 8. We're getting through it. All right. He's Sigmund. I'm Cecil. We are the Audible. Saying subscribe to all of our Football Guys channels here on YouTube. Help us out by like, comment, share, subscribe, hit the notification bell so that you never miss a vid. Watch these other videos. We are the Audible. Stay tuned, and would you please stay frosty, baby.